Romans 8, verse 23. And not only the creation, but who? We ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. Now, I can get a little bit animated and get a little bit frustrated with prosperity preachers, okay? Or the prosperity gospel, which just says if you have enough faith and you love the Lord, then you're going to have money and you're going to have health and everything's going to go well for you. Or just name it, claim it, faith healers that just go, you're not sick. I don't care what that MRI said. We'll wait on the Lord's MRI. And you're going, okay, well, he just gave it to us through common grace. It's called an MRI. I have the picture. This is the word from the Lord, oligodendroglioma. Okay, he gave us the word. Okay, so you've got people that just go, no, you don't claim that, you don't receive that, you don't. But if it's here, isn't that stupid? I mean, if it's not here, then it's not here. So you don't walk in fear and just go, oh no, this is eventually going to get me. But in the same way, when you've been shown this is going to be difficult and you're going to walk through a storm here, you don't pretend that's not true. As to somehow join in God's trickeration or something to make it go away. It's just a silly deal. And here's why I get upset with it. Because A, everyone in this room is going to at one time or another suffer badly or have someone near them suffer badly. And B, since that's true, no one will be prepared for it if you believe that if you just believe this certain way or do this certain thing, that nothing like that's ever going to happen to you. So since you're looking at me like I haven't been to seminary, let's chat. Let's do this. Let's do biblical first, and then we'll do a little bit historical, and then from there we'll get into some good news because this is all hard stuff. If you just start walking biblically, so we've got to try to figure out what date it was that God decided that his way that he's done this for thousands of years needs to change because it wasn't working for him. If we go back and we look at Moses, everybody loves Moses. Nobody wants his ministry. Okay? Moses literally wanders in the desert for 40 years with grumbling, complaining, whining people and has to wait for every one of them to die off before he can go into the promised land. Okay? They finally all die off. He's wandered the desert for 40, literally walked in a circle for 40 years. Okay? People just bread's falling out of the sky to feed them. Water's coming out of rocks so they have something to drink. They're like, bread again? Are you serious? All right? Just that type of people. Okay? Thank you for not being that all the time here at the village. So in the end, God takes him up on the mountainside, parts the clouds, shows him the promised land. Tears fill his eyes. Here we go. We're going in. And God goes, no, you're not going in. Joshua's going to take him in. I'm going to kill you up here on the mountain. And that's in the Bible. They didn't tell you that part in Sunday school, but that's also in the Bible. All right? David has a son who rapes his daughter and then leads a rebellion against him. Once again, David and Goliath, but we don't hear a lot about the fact that the sword never left David's house after the Bathsheba incident. He actually is removed from his throne for an extended period of time by one of his sons. So we don't talk about that one. Job, Job. He's no stranger to suffering. He literally, in an instant, loses everything except his nagging wife. It's just in the Bible. I'm not trying to start a fight, ladies. I didn't say you're nagging. I'm saying Job's wife's nagging, and I have textual evidence. And so, literally, his wealth, his health, his children, all taken from him in an instant, and he praises God. And then his wife says, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die, you fool." So I'd have been like, "Can I have just give me a camel, and take the woman." Camel, woman. I think that's a fair trade. You had Jeremiah. Jeremiah's always been one of my favorites, especially when I get to preach to young preachers, because God comes to Jeremiah and says, if you'll say what I tell you to say, and you'll go where I tell you to go, and you'll do what I tell you to do, I'll give you the power to build up nations and to destroy them. And Jeremiah does it, and almost every time he opens his mouth, he gets beaten. He gets thrown into a ditch, left for dead once. And then, by the way, the book ends, and Israel never listened to him, and they all went into exile, and guess who went into exile with them? Jeremiah. So in this real pointed scene, Jeremiah's in a ditch, he's naked, he's bleeding, just got worked over again for saying what God told him to say, and he screams out to heaven, you have seduced me, you have deceived me. was his claim against the Lord. That you wooed me in with this line that I could build up nations and destroy it. And then you wheeled me in with that, reeled me in with that, and then this is what I've got instead. And so we can watch Jeremiah walking through an immense amount of difficulty. And I know some of you already are like, this is real Old Testament, Matt. Jesus is God's a lot happier in the New Testament. Okay, we can go to happy God in the New Testament. John the Baptist, the Bible says what about John the Baptist? That born of woman, there has never been a greater man. Okay? John the Baptist ends up in prison for calling out Herod's incestuous affair. Okay? So he ends up in prison, and while in prison, which, by the way, I'm just doubting that prison in this period of time is a lot like, I don't think there's a lot of yard time back then, okay? Not a lot of exercise, not a lot of cable. Okay? Just have a hard, I'm not straight up on my history there, but I could just guess. And so he sends a word to Jesus, are you the one or should we expect another? That's the run. Are you the Messiah? Jesus quotes Isaiah 61 to him, which is a messianic prophecy, but leaves off, and the captives shall be set free. Jesus sends word back, oh, I'm the one, and you're going to die in prison. So just so we're together, the man who Jesus says, there will never be a man born greater than this man, is beheaded in prison for being, and saying exactly what God told him to do, be, and say. Did you get that? I know some of you are like, God, we should have had brunch. We shouldn't have come. Okay, Jesus is beaten. Jesus is crucified. He prays, Father, let's do this another way. Goes to the cross. Paul is beaten severely, stoned, whipped, shipwrecked, and then attacked by a snake. You want to talk about long day? Shipwrecked, night and day in the sea, end up on an island, get attacked by a snake. At what point are you like, come on! Throw me a bone here. Like literally, we're on an island, shipwrecked. So, and then you got Paul, of all the apostles, they all die very badly. They are beheaded, they are crucified upside down, they are stoned, they are thrown off the roof of the temple, they have their skulls crushed in. The only one that dies maybe quaintly is John, who's exiled in Patmos, but what we find out is from tradition is that they actually tried to boil him alive and he didn't die and it freaked him out, so they exiled him to Patmos. Okay, so it wasn't in biblical times that God's promise was that we wouldn't enter into suffering. That was never the promise. And some of you have actually bought into a lie that's going to eventually betray you, and that's that you can control the hand of God by your behavior, that if you do this, you get this. But Romans 11 is very clear that you cannot put God in your debt. Okay? You cannot. But we have better news. So let me finish this and then we'll get... No, historically, Spurgeon, Charles Haddon Spurgeon, the Prince of Preachers, is what they called him, which is just a cool nickname, by the way, the Prince of Preachers, and died at the age of 57, despite the fact that he was an unbelievable preacher, unbelievably productive. I think he wrote like 140, 150 books, started an orphanage, started a pastor's college, this is all in London, just a tremendous, tremendous man of God. Wrestled with and struggled with depression most of his life. In fact, there were large blocks of time where he was just gone, like AWOL, couldn't get out of bed with his depression. David Brainerd, probably not a well-known name for most people, was a missionary to Indians in New Jersey. Okay, contracted tuberculosis, continued to minister, never saw revival among those Indians, never saw a lot of people come to faith, just faithfully served. One of Jonathan Edwards' daughters nursed him through the last few days of his life. He died at the age of 29, and then Edwards' daughter had tuberculosis and got sick and eventually died. John Owen, who wrote The Death of Death, probably the densest book I've ever read, but talks a lot about mortifying sin in the flesh, had 11 children die before he did. Can you imagine planning the funeral for 11 children? This is, I'll try to pull us up into a little bit more modern. It is well with my soul. Did you grow up in church? Did you sing that one? When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll. Horatio Spafford wrote that song after his two daughters drowned on a ship to England. And on and on and on I could go here.